had to be like 8 years old in church. Some gospel shit, and I sung that shit in front of everybody, the whole congregation. For real. Now look, I'm a gangster. That shit was fun. It was fun. And then from that point on, I knew like, yeah, I'm finna do this, motherfucker.
Nothing on me? Yeah. Look. 50 shots up in his sack, I won't let up. XD a nigga throwing Beretta. Shoot first and do yourself a favor. Report like I'm Greg Sager. Back out a nigga in with the bluffing. Dread war, nigga shoot you for nothing. 10 toes up on your back, I'm drumming. SK, I have him run. It's Pop Smoke. It's that nigga from the floor, shit, bitch, right back. And I don't politic, cause niggas ain't like that. I drop a clip or two and get a light pack. And I don't care if you lose and still fight back. Manslaughter and homicides. Whole bunch of mamas cry. Whole bunch of niggas die. Looking up, I wonder why. Why niggas took my God? I'm still screaming R.I.P. to all my fallen soldiers. For now, I'm giving hot shells like tacos. Big woo, I'm nacho. Still ducking potholes and still dumping that Tahoe. I ain't gon' front, yeah, I'm a leader, man. I've been rolling beaters, man. Hit home runs like a...
What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Natal Kicking Knowledge. Today, we're going to get into the natal chart of the late Pop Smoke. So, let's get into it. If you don't know, Pop Smoke was a hip-hop artist who recently passed away. He was gunned down in a home invasion gone wrong. And today, as I record this video, would have been his 21st birthday. And the thing about this young man is that in this short time, he was extremely innovative as well as popular. And I gotta admit, at the time of his death, I didn't really know who he was. I had heard his music and I heard his name, but I didn't really put two and two together. But nonetheless, he was quite popular, innovative, one of the pioneers of this new sound called Brooklyn Drill. So one of the first things that I noticed about his chart was that he has a grand cross in fixed signs. And it's a really powerful alignment, particularly within fixed signs. But I gotta tell you, there is no recorded birth time for Pop Smoke. And what I like to do in this situation is I always like to look at the person's solar chart and moon chart. That's when you put the moon at the ascendant, and you read it from that way, or you put the sun there. So in this case, I decided to read it from the solar chart perspective. And I gotta tell you, I feel like Pop Smoke was either a Leo rising or a Scorpio rising, and if not, a fixed sign ascendant, because this grand cross, like I said, that way would have ended up on the angles, which really speaks to what he was able to do and manifest within this short period of time. And the reason I think he would have been a Leo rising or Scorpio rising is because he did have this kind of Scorpio look about him, minus the intense eyes, but he did have this mysterious type aura. But more importantly, Scorpio puts Leo in the 10th house. And one of the things that he was known for was his style, but more specifically his hair. There's something called Pop Smoke braids, and if you go look this guy up, or you know what I'm talking about, you'll see like his hair. He was very much so known for that. So I would say it was definitely a Leo kind of vibe. And not to mention, for someone this young, he amassed quite a lot of respect, and overall carried himself, you know, like a star. The next thing about this, when not having a birth time, is that the moon was changing signs on the day he was born. So if he was born around his solar time, when his sun was on the ascendant, he would be a Libra moon. If he was born later in the day, he'd be a Scorpio moon. I rather like the Libra moon because I realized, you know, other people were essential towards his development, as well as the aesthetic. And his Venus ending up in Virgo, you can see that he put a lot of detail into his look and how he came across to others. Okay, so going back to this grand cross. So I have a theory about grand crosses. I believe that, it is one of two things. It's these souls, when you're born with a grand cross in a particular sign, you can be harboring a lot of karma. So a lot of lessons to be learned. Okay, it's quite possible you're carrying over particular things that you need to wrap up. Okay, and in this sense of fixed energies, the person was really stuck in their ways regarding the particular things that they needed to develop or change, or the soul was on a path of accelerated evolution. Okay, so rather than having a specific focus for the particular lifetime, to accelerate its evolution, it decided to take on, a lot of lessons. So, with Pop Smoke, with the solar chart, he's a Mercury in Leo. So being that he's a late Cancer, a lot of the chart a lot of the first house ends up being within the sign of Leo. So he has Mercury in the sign of Leo, as well as his North Node, and this trines his Pluto in Sagittarius. Okay, and this one is really instrumental, because one of the things he was known for within his music was his distinct voice, which is very deep and almost spooky like, okay, or what we could call Plutonian. Okay, wasn't high pitched at all, very baritone, deep, dark, and all of that. Then the next thing here that we see, with the Mercury trine Pluto, is that he was calculated mentally. I watched the interview with the young man, and the young man said, I don't consider myself a rapper. I'm a hustler. And as I watched the interview, I could just see, like I said, this is someone who put a lot of thought into their creative output and how they were going to approach things. So someone with Mercury trine Pluto has a deep intellect and the ability to really focus and bring ideas towards fruition. All right, and with the Pluto being in the 5th house, this mental energy is dedicated towards his personal expansion and individuality and creative arts, right? So another interesting thing, I did a little bit of research with Mercury and Pluto contacts, is that these individuals normally get into trouble when they are within their youth. Mercury represents, childhood and things of that nature. So it's actually reported that Pop Smoke was kicked out of middle school for having a gun on him. Okay, but with the trine to Pluto, we see that this is more so something that didn't necessarily hinder his growth, but more so he was just able to kind of learn from. But what we can also see here with the Mercury trine Pluto is just someone who is enamored or fascinated by the darker side of life. And then Mercury also representing friends, this kind of shows you the influence of people that was around him. All right, so moving on with that, then we have the North Node there, which really speaks towards him developing his sense of self and going after his creative goals and just overall expanding upon his ego. But I do want to look here at his Cancer sun, and this being something that you always got to keep in mind with celebrities. Like, this is a persona. So with me looking and seeing that Pop Smoke was a Cancer sun, I immediately am seeing someone who is very sensitive, very family oriented, and depending on where this actually ended up in his chart, he forms emotional ties towards the people that he's around. So going with the sense that he's a Libra moon here, he was emotionally connected to his friends and his family and other people that he formed relationships with. Hence, if you go back and look at interviews with him or even his music, he was always surrounded by other people. So the Cancer part, this is how he constructed his shell, okay? Like, with the Leo energy, I don't necessarily want all eyes on me, rather than all eyes will be on me based on who I'm around. So that's something that also, came to mind while I was looking at this chart. So then we go here and really focus in on the grand cross within the fixed sign. His Saturn and Jupiter are both in Taurus and end up within the 10th house. And this is great. This really speaks towards him being able to find his niche within career really early. And I do believe that this was accelerated by the fact that Uranus, a planet of, sudden impact and changes, and also popularity, was in his 10th house. Okay, so crossing at the time when Uranus came in and it crosses Jupiter is when he really was blowing up and his name was expanding and all of that. So then we look here at the aspects that this makes. Him being a Neptune and Uranus and Aquarius person, this is very, very key. This is squaring energy. So the real, like I told you, he was innovative. He was from New York, but musically did not embody that sound. I believe that this was due to the fact that he had Saturn square Uranus at an exact degree, which is really about breaking tradition and going against the grain. Okay, Saturn is structure. It is old things, tradition. Uranus is revolution and rebellion. So we can see that this is a person that very much so wanted to rebel and be seen as rebellious and find ways to stick out above the crowd, okay, creatively. So now, along with that, the Jupiter and the Neptune are also squaring one another. Then we add back into the fact that transiting Uranus is going through the 10th. I gotta let you know that this is truly a double-edged sword. Okay, at one point it enables you to really live out your dreams and receive numerous accolades and prestige from the outside public, but at the same time, this unexpected energy of impulsiveness really follows you around. Then we go here and add in the fact that his Mars and Mercury squared one another. And as I looked at this chart, I'm like, okay, Pluto's in the 5th. Pluto is trining Mercury. Mercury is squaring Mars. To me, this really reads as someone who had a humongous ego and they like talking themselves up. And what happens here also with Mercury and Mars is that the individual is argumentative, okay? And then when we add in the fact, because like I said, a grand cross is when 4 planets are all squaring one another, and then there's oppositions as well. So it actually creates a cross. So this Mercury and Mars is speaking of conflict. Then the Neptune in the 7th is squaring that Mars, and that speaks of being a victim of violence. Him being a Cancer as well, I would think that there was innate fear of confrontation, but in true Cancer fashion, the person creates a shell in which they actually welcome that in order to protect themselves and not come off as vulnerable. They get themselves in a situation where they have to, I'm not backing down or being afraid. So as I looked at this chart, I truly saw all the markers for someone to pass before their time. And the fact that he endured a violent death really speaks towards that Mars and Scorpio squaring the Mercury and also squaring the Neptune. Then when we look into it, it was like a mystery. There was no direct suspects, although it has come out in recent days that they found the people who were a part of it. But initially, at the point of it, was like mysterious. How did this happen? Okay, but just some closing thoughts here. The reason that this alignment is powerful within the angles is because, particularly with that first, 7th, and 10th house. 10th house is about public standing, what you are known for. He has the planet of good luck, Jupiter there. Also the planet Saturn of gains, the planet that grants access towards what you want. So because of Uranus's transit through it, it opened up his 10th house rather early, opposed to another person who may have Saturn in the 10th house in another sign. Okay, then when we look into the first house, this is someone who is, everything they have there, they wear at face value. People are drawn into it. And then to have a planet like Uranus and Neptune in the 7th, other people see you in this dreamy, rebellious, innovative leader kind of way. And this is very much so the energy that surrounded Pop Smoke in his short 20 years. But at the same time, what we can see here with the oppositions and squares from that 7th house is that the people around him probably did him more harm than good. Okay, and that he probably had bad judgment within friends. Okay, and his Jupiter having squares is that he didn't necessarily exercise wisdom. So I can imagine that before his passing, he was warned a lot about how he was moving. And like I said, I see him as someone who had a pretty big ego and talked himself up. And to some extent, to be the type of artist he portrayed himself to be, you got to do that. But very, very powerful chart, very interesting one. I think, he went through a lot more than we realized. And I think he was very much so a fighter, but at the same time, that Leo energy helped him gain respect and be seen as a leader. But nonetheless, I figured I'd do a little, breakdown of his chart. Feel free to chime in. Let me know what you think. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to do so now. Until next time, peace.